Right, we're here, three gentlemen involved in the planning business, building business, design business, and we're going to talk about the green zone aspect of the island plan. It's on the board behind us in its current format, the island plan 2011 I think it was. But every 10 years or so we get these island plan and the green zone gets bigger and bigger, so it seems. Is there any purpose in it? Planning Minister, or Environment Minister as they call you now, Bob Duhamel, is there any purpose in the green zone?
Yeah, well, I think there is, absolutely. I mean, we've got three separate areas. There's the built-up area, which is mainly the town and Llancanfay and the whole sprawl kind of along the southeast coast. So that's the built-up area. We have the area of outstanding natural beauty, which has been incorporated into our coastal national park area. So that's the double green area around the edges. And of course that leaves an area in between which has got some buildings in it, but generally it's agricultural land. It forms a backdrop to the built-up site and to the national park.
Well, so that's the traditional view of what a green zone is. It applies in the UK, but does it really apply in Jersey? Because it's a very small island. You've got a mixture of building styles, building types, usage of land all over the island. You can have an industrial activity next to a domestic activity, and it's not quite like the UK. And this obsession with zoning the island, turning it into, I mean, I live at St Clements for example, and it's houses as far as the eye can see. It needs other activities. This zoning is not healthy for the island. It's not healthy for the community.
Well, I'd take issue with there greatly. I think it is absolutely necessary. Because otherwise, what zoning would apply to it? It would be built-up area or area to be built on, and in essence, all you'd end up with is a narrow coastal strip of outstanding character and landscape importance, and nothing else. I think for as long as we've got buildings in the green zone area, we have to get the balance right, but there has to be a flavour of the area, and the flavour of the area is generally green, and as far as I'm concerned, that makes perfect sense to keep it as a green zone predominantly.
Can't we trust architects to design buildings around the island which are compatible? There's an architect here, architects incapable. For example, I've never seen an ugly Jersey farmhouse. Now, they were built without architects or planners. Hundreds of them in the island. I've never seen an ugly one. Why is it?
I think historically because they relate to the land. They're farm buildings, they grow out of the land, and they're part and parcel of the landscape. I disagree with Robert in respect of having a blanket green coverage, green zone. There are opportunities all over the island where you can put a building in, a new building, and it'd be innocuous and it's well designed. I don't have the slightest problem with that. It happens everywhere, it happens all over the world, and it should happen here. You don't want a Malta, you don't want a Guernsey, but there's opportunities here that we should recognise, use and exploit.
I don't want to defend Guernsey, but I see very little wrong with Guernsey. Certainly no more wrong with Guernsey than there is with Jersey. But this idea, I mean, buildings in many places enhance the landscape. This is what buildings do. Kidding ourselves if we think there's a natural environment out there. Everything on this island which is accessible by mankind is man-made environment. Everything out there is totally man-made. You were John Young, Deputy Young. You used to be the Chief Officer at the Planning Office, as it's thing called, I think. And I have many battles with you. And one of the issues then was, in theory, when your term, a person could do with their property what they wanted unless there was a good reason against it. Now it's been turned upside down under the new island plan and the zoning policies. The whole purpose is that the applicant has to prove that what they do is justified. In other words, guilty until proved innocent. It's totally wrong way around. So the zones basically are produced in order that the planners have got reason to say no. Is that a fair analysis of what's happened?
There's some truth in what you say. The way I see it is that before the Second World War, people in Jersey were able to do what they wish with their properties. There were no state interference. But in common with pretty well most civilised societies throughout the world, they've had to put in place systems of managing the development of land in the best interests of the community. And the tool that's been chosen is to pass the planning law, and one of those tools that's used is to allocate areas of land for broadly a future land use. Doesn't mean to say that there is absolute unity of the buildings in those zones. At the moment, the green zone, there are all sorts of buildings in it. There's houses in it, there's farms in it, there's retail, there's everything. But of course, the zoning provides a set of rules of what you can do for the future. And the way I look, as you fly over Jersey, I think Jersey's planning system since the Second World War, with all the intense development and economic activity that's taken place here, it's served pretty well to try and manage the island as best it can. There's still very large areas of open land in Jersey, beautiful areas. You can go out to Ley Lawns and you've got St Wands Bay and others, and also we've still got our countryside there.
But
and I think
countryside is it?
It's the communities.
Is it the cows' countryside? Is it the potatoes' countryside? I mean, there's a desperate need for all sorts of buildings. It's not just housing that this island needs. This building needs light industry. It needs rejuvenation of tourism, and these activities, tourism, housing especially, want to a large extent a lot of nice, pretty view sites.
It's to manage those.
Why shouldn't they have them?
Well, to manage those choices is why we have a planning system. It's why we have a planning minister, why we have a set of rules in the island plan. My view is that the rules are over complex and difficult to work, and they do result in a lot of unnecessary arguments and so on. And there is an issue about whether, for example, we've been able to accommodate sufficient housing needs that the island has over the years.
Tourism it's on its knees now. Tourism, now all those prime sites. I remember the planning office years ago had this extraordinary philosophy, well-meaning. All these prime hotels were to be not allowed to go out of tourism. You couldn't possibly do it. It was a well-meaning. Most of them, for the most part, they've gone out. All these headland sites, they've gone out of tourism. They've all become housing units or different uses. Now, these policies, they might be wrong, but they're ineffective. They don't have the desired result, do they?
Well, I don't think they do, but mainly because, and I was one of those members who was actually advocating the exit strategy, if you like, for tourist properties, but the states in their infinite wisdom didn't actually back the second step. There was absolutely nothing with the grading system and actually working out which tourism properties were so outworn that they could come out of the industry, or at least actually suggesting that if some hoteliers wanted to take their pension, that those premises could be sold on. But the part that wasn't put in place was to actually have a fund of monies collected by the taxpayer in order to purchase the properties and to wait until such a time as the new generation of hoteliers looking for these important tourism venues were able to start their new businesses. It didn't get a lot of support from the industry, because, as I say, most members were trying to exit from the tourism industry and take their pension.
The idea that you can direct industries to go in any particular direction, I mean, it's down to entrepreneurs will go where the money is, won't they?
They'll not only go where the money is, but I mean, this comes directly back to planning. I mean, it's the spatial planning element that's the important one. We do have industrial sites, and we do direct kind of businesses to those areas. If indeed those areas are too small, or if there's an upsurge in new businesses which require greater land elements to be set aside for new industrial sites, those are the things that get taken up in the island plan. The last island plan for this coming 10 years identified no further requirement for extra industrial sites. We thought that we had enough. If things change, we'll review it. But it's a spatial element of planning that's important. I agree with John and Derek up to a point that I think the application of the rules can appear to be too complex, or perhaps some of the rules are interpreted in different ways. But generally, the things that are being discussed that are causing problems are the design details of a property and not the spatial planning elements, which I think there is huge justification for in a crowded island.
Jersey has been a prosperous community since the war. Do you feel, as an architect, are you encouraged or restrained? What effect does the island plan have on you as a designer wanting to produce decent architecture?
I think you have to go back to the book on John, what's his name? John the lawyer, John Kelleher, of 19th century Jersey, and how things moved in Jersey, and it was all to do with equal size farm holdings. So to move forward, it was very slow, very difficult, and that, to me, I've been practicing Jersey 40 years now, that to me explains why Jersey does move slowly. But having said that, the Robert mentioned that, well, I think we've got different interpretations of the word spatial, the Welsh spatial plan. It's not a green plan. It's not a green plan. It's all the uses, but it takes those boundaries, areas, up into space, three-dimensional. And if you do have a good idea, it doesn't matter whether it's green or yellow, if the idea is right and the building is right, you're allowed to go ahead with it. You make your case. And I think that's what should happen now. This rigid green line, it's like the Iron Curtain, like a green curtain, you know. You can't go inside or outside it. I think it's wrong. I think you can relax that and attempt to make a case for individual sites. At the moment, people just kind of terrified as, oh, green zone, and the story planners, politicians, and now general public alike. And I think there's extraordinary amount of talent in Jersey, architectural talent, as we saw in the AJ Architecture Week recently. There is an opportunity, I see them every day, kind of infill sites, kind of back garden, all sorts. And I think there should be a push in that direction.
But if we think of places historically have had wealth, Venice or so, people put lots of money into producing what is world-acclaimed architecture. People go and admire it.
Sinking at the moment.
Sinking, well, that's an engineering.
A third of the population are there.
But it's been there for a while. I mean,
yes.
It does have places. Bath. You know, a lot of money put into Bath. It was a very wealthy, slightly sham, false, fashionable place. But I can't see people coming to Jersey for the architecture.
No, I don't think so either. But I think we have to be honest about that. And certainly some of the other political references that have been made recently about how old our buildings are and how old they look. I think those comments are probably not properly made.
I don't agree. I think one of the qualities of Jersey, as you drive around it, is this eclectic mix of pre-planning law buildings. And I think there is a vernacular style there that you can see. We've got the granite buildings, beautiful granite. We've got more sort of basic buildings as well. And I think there is almost a Channel Island style when you go to Sark and you go
30s.
Yes, you've got the bad. There's no question. You've got modern stuff. Yeah. But I think everybody has their own appreciation of architecture. For me, you spoke about Venice. I love Venice. You don't see too many of these modern glass and steel structures when you go to Venice. I don't know how they regulate their building architecture in Venice, but it doesn't seem to me that they allow that variation and kind of let architects have a free run.
And this restraint is not a local, recent restraint. This has been going on for hundreds of years. You'll find little towns all over the world which it looks like nobody's touched them for 500 years. Somebody has had some sort of inbuilt restraint within them, aesthetic appreciation.
But in Jersey, I think we have allowed modern architecture to express in recent years. I think the previous minister certainly had a reputation for doing that. You only have to drive past the southwest coast and see Portalet, the modern design in action, and everybody's got their own views about that. Some will be excited.
This is part of what I'm saying about the island plan's successes. We've had planning ministers, no flat roofs, no bricks, no monopitch roofs, no this, no that. Entirely fashion-led. You're an architect. There must be some sort of international forever standard, a high standard which is just simply good design, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you recognise it wherever you go. You recognise scale, you recognise colour, you recognise materials, and I think Jersey sits comfortably within that. I mean, if you've got a Greek island and it's just white and it's orange roofs, it's a cinch, isn't it? But Jersey's ahead of that, and it's I mean, like the town here has had a major international finance centre grafted on top of it, and it kind of copes all right with it. I think it's all right, you know. So
but the finance centre is entirely within the concept of green zones in the island plan. It's not, you know, it's been entirely within that, and now there are whole sections being devoted specifically to the finance centre on the waterfront, which, whether they would be architecturally appealing or not, but should they fit in with an island plan? Should they? Why shouldn't they be in St Mary? Why shouldn't you have a finance centre in St Mary? Why not?
Why not? An offshore.
I think that's ludicrous. I mean, if you apply that to its logical kind of conclusion, you'd be building everywhere. And one of the things that comes across very, very loudly from the public who enjoy living here is that they value the countryside.
But that most fundamental thing, where you live, restrained to living in that you're prepared to say the public can live primarily, the working public, in the town area, the built-up areas. They shan't live in St Mary's. If you're an agricultural worker, maybe you'll get a chance of living in St Mary's because you're allowed. And if you're rich, you can live in St Mary's.
It depends entirely on the standards. Right now, we're lucky enough to be here, kind of making this program today, in a disused potato warehouse, right next door to the pier facilities. Now, if you had household accommodation and residential accommodation to this standard of space, I think all of our right arms we ripped off very, very quickly by youngsters kind of queuing up in order to kind of put their monies to come and live in this particular place, as opposed to living in some kind of pseudo farmhouse in St Mary's.
3 plans ago, such spaces as this were specifically targeted in the island so-called plan to be turned into residential accommodation, and nothing's happened about it. 500 units around town, they said. Nothing's been done about it.
Well, I would ask that we should be looking at building bylaws, because an area that I'm concerned about is the amount of empty office space that exists in St Helier. The island is planning for new office space of this new very high standard that industries seem to require, but we've got a lot of very large volume of space in St Helier, which does have the potential, I believe, to offer really good living space if converted and enabled. There's things that get in the way of that. I don't think it's the planning policies, because this is built up area. I don't think there's anything in the island plan that stops it, but there are other things, and I think those things need to be looked at.
Because I mean, you're indicating, perhaps wrongly, that this isn't a stated policy, and it is. Right, so we're having a migration in terms of quality of office space. We've decided, which is a planning decision, to put it ostensibly in a particular area, and the migration from worn out places to new places is happening. Right, but what is equally valid is that the island plan suggests that those areas that are moved out of are turned back into residential accommodation. That is the next 10-year plan.
Yes, I agree.
So we're actually doing things by way of the policies. Maybe we're not doing them fast enough. Maybe there are some problems with individual sites, perhaps kind of having local difficulties. But over and all, I think we're getting it right.